The morning sun was just starting to peek over the mountains when Rebecca Torres unlocked the front door of her bakery. She'd been up since 4, kneading dough and preparing the pastries that had become her signature in Pine Ridge. The smell of fresh bread filled the small shop, and for a moment everything felt right with the world. Rebecca had moved to this tiny mountain town 3 years ago with her daughter Lily, looking for a fresh start. The kind of start where nobody asked too many questions about your past, where you could just be the lady who made really good cinnamon rolls and maybe, if you were lucky, build something resembling a normal life. Today was market day, and Rebecca loaded her van with trays of bread, muffins, and the apple turnovers that always sold out first. Lily, who was 8 now, helped carry the lighter boxes. Her dark curls bounced as she skipped to the van, chattering about the spelling test she'd aced yesterday. "Mom, do you think Mrs. Patterson will want her usual sourdough?" Lily asked, carefully placing a box in the back. "I made 2 extra loaves just in case," Rebecca said, ruffling her daughter's hair. That woman could eat her weight in sourdough. The farmer's market was already bustling when they arrived. Pine Ridge wasn't a big town, maybe 3,000 people if you counted the folks living up in the hills, but on market day it felt alive. Neighbors greeting neighbors, kids running between the stalls, and the constant hum of small talk and laughter. Rebecca set up her table between Old Man Chen's vegetable stand and the Riverside family's honey booth. She'd just finished arranging her display when she noticed the crowd gathering near the community bulletin board. Something was happening at the town hall tonight. Some kind of fundraiser for the new community center. "You going to the thing tonight?" Chen asked, nodding toward the commotion. Rebecca shrugged. "Probably should. Need to show my face, you know? Be part of the community." "That's the spirit," Chen said with an encouraging smile. He was one of the few people in town who'd been genuinely kind to her from day one. No judgment, no prying questions, just kindness. The market day passed like it usually did. Rebecca sold most of her inventory, exchanged pleasantries with customers, and tried to ignore the fact that some of the older families in town still treated her like a temporary fixture. Like she hadn't quite earned her place yet. That evening, Rebecca dropped Lily off with Mrs. Chen and headed to the town hall. The place was packed. The Whitmore family had organized the whole thing, and when the Whitmores organized something, everybody showed up. They'd been in Pine Ridge for 5 generations. They owned the lumber mill, half the commercial buildings downtown, and had enough influence to make or break just about anyone. Rebecca found a seat near the back and tried to blend in. The fundraiser was fine, nothing special. There was a silent auction, some speeches about community values, and a potluck dinner that was better than Rebecca expected. She even bid on a handmade quilt, though she knew she wouldn't win. Around 8:30, she gathered her things to leave early. She'd promised Lily she'd be back before bedtime. But as she was heading toward the door, she heard her name being called. "Rebecca? Rebecca Torres?" She turned to find Catherine Whitmore standing near the refreshment table, her face pale and her voice shaking. Catherine was the matriarch of the Whitmore family, a woman in her 60s who always dressed like she was attending a garden party. "Yes," Rebecca said, walking back toward her. "My necklace," Catherine said, loud enough that people nearby turned to look. "My grandmother's diamond necklace. It's gone." Rebecca felt her stomach drop, though she wasn't sure why. "That's terrible. Have you checked?" "I saw you," Catherine interrupted, her voice getting stronger, more accusatory. "I saw you standing near my purse earlier, near the coat rack." The room had gone quiet now. All eyes were on them. "I was just hanging up my jacket," Rebecca said carefully. "I didn't touch your purse. The necklace was there when I arrived. I checked it specifically because I was worried about bringing it. And now it's gone." Catherine's eyes were hard. "You were the only person I saw near that area." "Mrs. Whitmore, I didn't take your necklace." "I wouldn't." "She's calling you a liar, Catherine," someone called from the crowd. It was Bill Hendricks, who owned the hardware store. "I'm not calling anyone anything," Catherine said, but her tone suggested otherwise. "I'm simply stating facts. My family heirloom is missing, and Rebecca was seen near my belongings." The sheriff, a tired-looking man named Tom Wade, pushed through the crowd. "Now hold on, everyone. Catherine, let's not jump to conclusions. We'll search the area, check if it fell somewhere." But the damage was done. Rebecca could see it in people's faces. The suspicion, the judgment. In a town like Pine Ridge, where everyone knew everyone, being accused by Catherine Whitmore was as good as being convicted. "I should go," Rebecca said quietly. "Running away?" Someone muttered she wasn't running. She was leaving before this got worse. But she knew how it looked. The drive home was a blur. When she picked up Lily, Mrs. Chen gave her a concerned look but didn't ask questions. Rebecca was grateful for that. That night, lying in bed, Rebecca stared at the ceiling and tried to understand what had just happened. She'd been so careful in Pine Ridge, kept her head down, worked hard, stayed out of trouble. And now this. The next morning, everything changed. When Rebecca opened the bakery, only 2 customers came in all morning. By afternoon, she realized people were actively avoiding her. She could see them walking past, glancing at the shop, then hurrying by. By the end of the week, business had dropped by 70%. Anonymous notes started appearing on her door. Thief. Criminal. Leave our town. Lily came home from school crying. Kids were calling her names, saying her mom was a robber. The teacher had separated her from her group during art class to prevent problems. Sheriff Wade came by the bakery on Thursday. He was apologetic but firm. Rebecca, I've got no evidence of anything. No witnesses except Catherine's statement about you being near her stuff. I can't arrest you or even formally investigate without more, but... He paused, looking uncomfortable. People are talking. This town can be tough when it decides someone's guilty. I didn't take that necklace, Rebecca said for what felt like the 100th time. I believe you, Wade said, though Rebecca wasn't sure if he meant it. But believing you and proving it are different things. After he left, Rebecca sat alone in her empty bakery and let herself cry. She'd worked so hard to build this life, and it was crumbling because of something she didn't do. She didn't notice the man watching from across the street. He was tall, weathered, probably in his late 50s. He wore a faded flannel shirt and work boots, and he'd been standing there for almost 20 minutes, just watching the bakery with an expression that was hard to read. Daniel Mercer had been in the town hall that night. He'd seen the whole thing, and unlike everyone else in Pine Ridge, he knew exactly what it felt like to watch an innocent person be destroyed by accusations they couldn't fight. He'd stayed silent for 20 years. Maybe it was time to break that silence, but not yet. First, he needed to understand what was really happening, because in his experience, the truth about missing jewelry and convenient accusations was rarely what it seemed. Daniel turned and walked back to his truck, his mind already working through the details he'd observed that night, details that nobody else seemed interested in examining. In Pine Ridge, the Whitmore's word was law. But Daniel Mercer had stopped caring about that kind of law a long time ago. 2 weeks passed and Rebecca's life had become unrecognizable. The bakery that once filled with the sounds of friendly conversation and the ring of the cash register now sat mostly empty. She still baked every morning because she didn't know what else to do, but most of it ended up donated to the church or thrown away. The worst part wasn't the financial struggle, though that was bad enough. It was the loneliness, the way people crossed the street to avoid her. The way conversation stopped when she walked into the post office. She'd become invisible and hypervisible at the same time. Lily had stopped asking to go to school. The principal had called twice about incidents involving other children. Nothing physical, he assured Rebecca, just teasing. Just kids being kids. But Rebecca knew better. Kids learned cruelty from their parents, and right now every parent in Pine Ridge thought Rebecca Torres was a thief. On Tuesday afternoon, a notice appeared on Rebecca's door. Mandatory town meeting that evening at 7. Agenda, community standards and the upcoming Harvest Festival. Rebecca knew what it really meant. They wanted her there so they could make an example of her. She thought about not going, but that would only make things worse. So at 6:45 she dropped Lily with Mrs. Chen again, grateful that at least one person in this town still showed her kindness. Hold your head up, Mrs. Chen whispered as Rebecca left. You've done nothing wrong. The town hall was even more crowded than it had been 2 weeks ago. Every seat was taken. People lined the walls, and the energy in the room felt charged with something ugly. Rebecca found a spot along the side wall and tried to make herself small. Sheriff Wade called the meeting to order, but before he could get through the standard opening remarks, Catherine Whitmore stood up. She was wearing pearls and a navy dress that probably cost more than Rebecca made in a month. Before we begin official business, Catherine said, her voice clear and commanding, I think we need to address the elephant in the room. Here it comes, Rebecca thought. 2 weeks ago, my grandmother's diamond necklace was stolen from this very building. a family heirloom worth over $30,000. And despite my clear identification of the person I saw near my belongings, nothing has been done. Now, Catherine, Sheriff Wade started, but she talked right over him. This community was built on trust and honesty. Our ancestors settled these mountains because they wanted to create a place where people could depend on each other. And now we have someone among us who violates that trust, and we're supposed to just pretend everything is fine. People were nodding. Someone in the back said, "That's right." Rebecca's hands were shaking. She wanted to speak up, to defend herself, but her throat felt closed. "I'm not saying we should rush to judgment," Catherine continued, though that was exactly what she was doing. "But I am saying that if this person refuses to come forward and make this right, maybe they don't belong in Pine Ridge." "She's right here," someone shouted. "Why don't you ask her directly?" All heads turned toward Rebecca. She felt like an animal trapped in headlights. Catherine looked at her with an expression that managed to be both pitying and contemptuous. "Rebecca, I'm giving you one more chance. Did you take my necklace?" "No." Rebecca's voice came out barely above a whisper. She tried again, louder. "No, I did not take your necklace. Then where is it?" Bill Hendricks called out. "It didn't just walk away. I don't know where it is, but I didn't take it. I would never." "Oh, spare us." A woman Rebecca didn't recognize interrupted. "We know you showed up here 3 years ago with no history, no references. Who knows what you were running from?" "She's probably done this before," someone else added. The accusations started flying from all directions. Rebecca tried to respond, but every time she opened her mouth, someone talked over her. The room was getting louder, angrier. "Maybe she should just leave," a voice suggested. "Yeah, go back to wherever you came from." Then something hit Rebecca's shoulder. A wadded-up piece of paper. She flinched, more from shock than pain. "You people need to calm down," Sheriff Wade was saying, but his voice was drowned out. Another projectile flew through the air. This time it was heavier, harder. A small stone from the gravel parking lot outside. It hit the wall near Rebecca's head. "This is getting out of hand," Wade shouted, but the crowd had developed its own momentum. More stones. Someone had actually brought in a handful of pebbles, and others were following suit. It wasn't a riot, not exactly, but it was close enough. Rebecca raised her arms to protect her face as small rocks bounced off her shoulders and back. In the corner of the room, she could hear Lily's voice. She must have followed Rebecca here. Her daughter was crying, screaming for them to stop, and that broke something in Rebecca. Tears streamed down her face, not from the physical pain, but from the absolute helplessness of the moment. This was how communities destroyed people. Not with trials or evidence, but with collective certainty, and small acts of violence that everyone could later pretend weren't that serious. Then the door opened. The sound cut through the chaos like a knife. Everyone turned to look, and the room went suddenly eerily quiet. Daniel Mercer stood in the doorway. Most people in Pine Ridge knew Daniel by sight, though few knew him personally. He lived up on the mountain in a cabin he'd built himself. Came into town maybe once a week for supplies and never stayed longer than necessary. He didn't attend town meetings, didn't go to the festivals, didn't participate in community life at all, so his presence here now was startling enough to stop the mob in its tracks. Daniel didn't say anything. He just walked forward with slow, deliberate steps. His boots made solid sounds on the wooden floor. His face was weathered and hard, the face of someone who'd spent years alone in the mountains, but his eyes were sharp and clear. He walked straight to where Rebecca stood, her arms still raised defensively, tears on her face, and then he did something nobody expected. He positioned himself directly between Rebecca and the crowd. He stood there, silent, solid, unmovable. "Daniel," Catherine Whitmore said, recovering her composure first. "This doesn't concern you." Daniel didn't respond. Didn't even look at her. He just stood there looking at the crowd with an expression that was impossible to read. "Did you hear me?" Catherine's voice had an edge now. "Move aside, nothing." Bill Hendricks stepped forward. "Come on, Daniel. We're just trying to get to the truth here." For a long moment, Daniel just stared at him, and there was something in that stare, something in the absolute stillness of this man who never spoke, that made Bill take a step back. The thing about Daniel Mercer was that nobody in Pine Ridge really knew his story. They knew he'd come from somewhere else, that he'd been here about 20 years, that he preferred isolation. But they didn't know why, and that unknown quality made him unpredictable, maybe even dangerous in their minds. One by one, The people holding stones let them drop to the floor. The sound of pebbles hitting wood echoed in the silent room. "This meeting is over," Sheriff Wade said quickly, seizing the opportunity. "Everyone go home now." People filed out, some looking ashamed, others defiant, most just confused. Catherine Whitmore left with her head high, surrounded by her family members, shooting one last venomous look at Rebecca. When the room was mostly empty, Daniel finally moved. He turned to Rebecca and she saw his eyes properly for the first time. They were gray-blue like storm clouds and full of something that looked like recognition. Like he'd seen this all before. "Thank you," Rebecca whispered. Daniel gave a single nod. Then he looked over at Lily, who was still crying, being comforted by Mrs. Chen. Something passed across his face then. Something painful and old. He gestured toward the back door with his head. Rebecca understood. They shouldn't leave through the front where people might still be lingering. Daniel's truck was an old Ford, probably from the 90s, but well-maintained. He opened the passenger door for Rebecca and Lily without a word. They climbed in and he drove them home through the dark mountain roads. The silence in the truck wasn't uncomfortable. It felt almost protective, like a buffer against the ugliness of what had just happened. When they reached Rebecca's small house at the edge of town, Daniel put the truck in park, but kept the engine running. Rebecca gathered Lily, who had fallen asleep against her shoulder. "I don't know why you did that," Rebecca said quietly. "But thank you." "You didn't have to." Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice rough from disuse but steady. "Yes, I did." They were the first words Rebecca had ever heard him say. Before she could respond, he was already pulling away, his taillights disappearing into the dark. Inside her house, Rebecca laid Lily down in bed and sat in her kitchen, trying to process what had happened. The mob, the stones, and the silent mountain man who had walked into the crowd and stopped it all without saying a word. Who was Daniel Mercer, and why had he risked whatever peace he'd found in his isolation to protect a woman he didn't even know? Rebecca didn't have answers, but for the first time in 2 weeks she felt something other than despair. She felt curiosity, and maybe, just maybe, hope. The morning after the town meeting, Rebecca woke up with bruises on her arms and shoulders. Nothing serious, just small purple marks where the stones had hit, but they were a reminder that last night had been real. That her neighbors, people she'd served coffee and pastries to for 3 years, had actually thrown rocks at her. She made breakfast for Lily, who was quieter than usual. Her daughter picked at her pancakes, pushing them around her plate. "Mom," Lily finally said, "why did that man help us?" Rebecca had been wondering the same thing all night. "I don't know, sweetie, but I'm glad he did." "He seemed sad," Lily observed with the strange intuition children sometimes have, like someone heard him before. Later that morning, after Rebecca opened the bakery to absolutely no customers, Mr. Chen knocked on her door. He was carrying a bag of vegetables from his garden and wearing an expression of concern. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "I've been better," Rebecca admitted. "Mr. Chen, what do you know about Daniel Mercer?" The old man set down his bag and leaned against the counter. "Daniel, why do you ask?" "He helped me last night. Put himself between me and basically the whole town. But I don't understand why." Mr. Chen was quiet for a moment, like he was deciding how much to say. "Daniel Mercer is a good man who had something terrible happen to him." "You want to know his story?" "If you think I should." 20 years ago, maybe a bit more, Daniel lived in the city. Big city, couple hours from here. He was a lawyer, and from what I heard, he was really good at it. Specialized in defending people who'd been wrongly accused of crimes. Made a name for himself. Rebecca listened, trying to picture the silent mountain man as a city lawyer. It didn't quite fit. He had a wife and a daughter. The daughter, her name was Hannah. Beautiful girl, smart, had her whole life ahead of her. She was maybe 16, 17 years old. Mr. Chen's voice got softer. There was an incident at her school. Something valuable went missing and Hannah got blamed for it. Rebecca's stomach clenched. What happened? Daniel knew the law, knew how to fight these things in court. But he couldn't stop what happened socially. The other key. Yes, they were brutal. Social media made it worse. They called her a thief, said she didn't belong in their nice school. The parents got involved, demanding she be expelled. And Hannah, she just couldn't take it. "Oh no," Rebecca whispered. "She took her own life," Mr. Chen said quietly. left a note saying she couldn't stand everyone thinking she was a liar. They found the actual thief 2 months later. Some other kid had taken the thing and hidden it in Hannah's locker to frame her, but by then it was too late. Rebecca felt tears running down her face. She thought about Lily, about how her daughter had been coming home crying from school, about how one more week, one more month of this treatment might break her. His wife couldn't handle the grief, Mr. Chen continued. She blamed Daniel for not doing more, though God knows what else he could have done. She left him. And Daniel, he just quit everything. Walked away from his career, his life, everything. Bought that piece of land up on the mountain and built a cabin. He's been up there ever since, mostly alone. Why doesn't he talk? Mr. Chen shrugged. I think after Hannah died, after he couldn't save her with all his words and legal knowledge, he just decided words didn't matter anymore. He's spoken to me maybe a dozen times in 20 years, usually just to say thank you or excuse me. Nothing more. Rebecca understood now. Daniel hadn't just helped a stranger last night. He'd been trying to save his daughter 20 years too late. The next few days passed in a strange limbo. The bakery remained mostly empty. People still avoided Rebecca on the street, but nobody threw stones anymore. It was like Daniel's intervention had drawn a line that people were afraid to cross. On Friday morning, Rebecca found something on her doorstep. An envelope, no name on it. Inside was cash. She counted it twice to be sure. $2,000. Exactly enough to cover 2 months of rent and utilities. There was also a small wooden box. Inside were 3 carved animals: a deer, a rabbit, and a bird. The craftsmanship was beautiful, each detail carefully rendered. They were clearly meant for Lily. Rebecca knew immediately who they were from. She drove up the mountain that afternoon, following the directions Mr. Chen had given her. Daniel's cabin was about 30 minutes outside town, down a dirt road that tested her van's suspension. The cabin was simple but well built, surrounded by pine trees. There was a workshop next to it, and Rebecca could hear the sound of someone working with wood. Daniel was outside, carving what looked like an owl from a large piece of oak. He looked up when he heard her van but didn't stop working. "Mr. Mercer," Rebecca said, climbing out, "I can't accept this money." He set down his tools and looked at her steadily. "I don't need charity," she continued. "I need my name cleared." Daniel studied her for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice rough but clear. "Not charity, investment, in what?" "In proving them wrong." He gestured for her to follow him into the cabin. Inside was surprisingly cozy. Books everywhere, a wood stove, comfortable furniture. On one wall was a photograph of a teenage girl with Daniel's eyes. Hannah. Daniel made coffee without asking if Rebecca wanted any, then sat down across from her at a wooden table he'd probably made himself. "I couldn't save her," he said simply. "Maybe I can help you." "How?" Rebecca asked. "The whole town thinks I'm guilty. Catherine Whitmore's word is law here. The whole town is wrong." Daniel took a sip of his coffee. "I was there that night. At the fundraiser. I saw things." "You did? What did you see?" "Tyler Whitmore." Daniel's expression hardened slightly. "Catherine's grandson. He was nervous, sweating. Kept going outside, coming back in, checking his phone constantly." Rebecca remembered Tyler vaguely. He was 19 or 20, had dropped out of college last year. She'd heard rumors he'd been in some kind of trouble, but nobody talked about it openly. "The Whitmores kept their problems private." "You think he took the necklace?" Rebecca asked. "I think he knows something." Daniel stood and pulled out a laptop. "I still have my old legal databases. Access to records. Let me do some digging." Over the next week, Rebecca and Daniel formed an unlikely partnership. She'd close the bakery in the afternoon and drive up to his cabin. He'd share what he'd found, and they'd piece together a picture of Tyler Whitmore. It wasn't pretty. Tyler had a drug problem, though the family had managed to keep it quiet. He'd been to rehab twice. There were records of unpaid debts, mostly to unsavory people in the city. And 2 weeks after the necklace went missing, he'd suddenly paid off $15,000 to various creditors. Where did he get the money? Rebecca wondered. That's what we need to find out. Daniel called in a favor from an old colleague, a private investigator named Rita, who owed him from their days working together. Rita spent 3 days tracking pawn shops in neighboring cities. On the 4th day, she called back. "Found it," Rita said over the phone, which Daniel had on speaker. "Pawn shop 2 hours east? Guy matching Tyler's description pawned a diamond necklace 2 days after your fundraiser. Got $12,000 for it. I've got the security footage. Rebecca felt her whole body relax. Finally. Proof. The shop owner identified Tyler from the photo I showed him, Rita continued. He's willing to testify if needed. And get this, the necklace is still there. They haven't sold it yet. After Daniel hung up, Rebecca started crying. Not sad tears this time, relief. We have evidence, she said. We can prove it. Evidence and proof are different in a town like this, Daniel said carefully. The Whitmores have power. They'll protect Tyler if they can. So what do we do? Daniel was quiet for a long time. The Harvest Festival is in 2 weeks. Big public event. Everyone will be there, including the sheriff. If we're going to do this, we need to do it publicly. Make it impossible for the Whitmores to sweep it under the rug. But how do we get Tyler to admit what he did? We give him a chance to tell the truth himself, Daniel said. Before we expose him. That evening, as Rebecca was leaving, she noticed Daniel had been working on something new, a sculpture larger than his usual work. It was a woman standing tall, her head held high. That's beautiful, Rebecca said. Daniel didn't answer, but there was something in his expression, something like purpose. For the first time in 20 years, he had a reason to use his voice again. Back at home, Lily was playing with the carved animals Daniel had made her. She'd lined them up on the windowsill and was telling them a story. The mean people were being mean, Lily narrated in her child's voice. But then the quiet man came and helped, and the animals helped too, and they all found the truth together. Rebecca smiled. Sometimes children understood things better than adults did. She just hoped Lily's story had a happy ending. Because the real story? That was far from over. The partnership between Rebecca and Daniel didn't go unnoticed in Pine Ridge. People saw her van making the trip up the mountain road. At the post office, in the grocery store, the whispers started again. She's got the hermit on her side now. 2 outcasts together. How fitting. My husband says Daniel Mercer hasn't spoken that many words to anyone in years. What she got on him. The gossip bothered Rebecca less than it once would have. She'd already been destroyed in this town's eyes. What more could they take from her? Besides, she had something now she hadn't had before. She had hope and she had an ally, but not everyone in town was hostile. Mrs. Chen continued to bring vegetables and kind words. A few other people, ones who'd felt the sting of judgment themselves over the years, started shopping at the bakery again. Small acts of rebellion against the Whitmore-led majority. And Lily, bless her heart, had started something unexpected. Every time Daniel came into town for supplies, she'd leave him little drawings tucked under his truck's windshield wiper. Pictures of mountains, animals, flowers, always with a message. Thank you for helping my mom. Daniel never acknowledged these gifts in person, but he kept every single one. Rebecca found that out one afternoon when she was at his cabin and saw them carefully pressed between the pages of a book on his shelf. She reminds you of Hannah, Rebecca said gently. Daniel nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Hannah would be proud of what you're doing, Rebecca continued. Helping someone else's daughter. I should have done more for her, Daniel said finally, his voice thick. I had all this legal knowledge, all these resources, and I couldn't stop it. You did everything you could. Sometimes the world is just cruel and it's not our fault. Daniel looked at her with those storm cloud eyes. That's what I'm trying to prove. That this time we can stop it. That this time truth can win. As the Harvest Festival approached, they refined their plan. Rita had retrieved the necklace from the pawn shop, working through proper legal channels so it could be used as evidence. Sheriff Wade now had the security footage and the pawn shop owner's statement, but they all agreed that confronting Tyler privately first was the right move. Give him the chance to do the right thing, Daniel said. He's young, probably scared. If he comes forward voluntarily, the legal consequences will be lighter. And more importantly, Rebecca's name gets cleared without it looking like a revenge play. The problem was getting Tyler alone. The Whitmore family kept him close these days. Catherine had probably sensed that something was brewing, and she wasn't about to let anyone near her grandson without supervision. The solution came from an unexpected source. Lily had made friends with Tyler's younger sister, Nina, who was in her class at school. Nina was 9, sweet, and from what Rebecca could tell, the only decent person in the Whitmore family. Tyler's not bad, Nina told Lily during a playdate Rebecca had allowed, despite her reservations. He's just sick. That's what Grandma calls it. An illness. He goes to meetings now trying to get better. Addiction, Rebecca realized. Tyler was probably in recovery or trying to be. That changed things slightly. He was sick, struggling, and had made a terrible choice in a moment of desperation. It didn't excuse what he'd done, but it made him human. Through Nina, they learned that Tyler often went to the old covered bridge outside town. It was his thinking spot, a place he went when the pressure from his family got too intense. He'd be there Tuesday afternoon, Nina said, because his family had a big gathering and he always needed space afterward. Tuesday came. Daniel and Rebecca drove to the covered bridge separately, not wanting to spook Tyler by arriving together. The bridge was a historic landmark built in the 1890s, spanning a creek that ran swift and clear. It was pretty here, peaceful. Rebecca could see why someone would come to think. Tyler was sitting on the bridge railing when they arrived, his legs dangling over the edge. He was thin, probably too thin, with the hollow look of someone who'd been through the ringer. When he saw them approaching, his first instinct was clearly to run. "Please don't," Daniel said, his voice calm but firm. "We just want to talk." "I don't have anything to say to you people," Tyler said, but his voice shook. "I think you do," Rebecca said gently. "I think you've been wanting to say something for weeks now." Tyler's face crumpled slightly. Up close, he looked even younger than his 20 years. Just a kid, really, who'd made some bad choices and was drowning in the consequences. Daniel pulled out a folder and set it on the bridge railing, far enough from Tyler that it wasn't threatening. "Security footage from Mike's pawn in Riverside. Shows you pawning a diamond necklace 2 days after the fundraiser. The description matches your grandmother's necklace exactly." The owner gave a statement. Tyler's hands were shaking now. "You don't understand? Then help us understand," Rebecca said. "Because right now my daughter comes home crying every day because kids call her mother a thief. My business is destroyed. My reputation is ruined, and I didn't do anything wrong." "I know," Tyler whispered. "I know you didn't. God, I'm so sorry." Daniel moved closer, his voice gentle in a way Rebecca hadn't heard before. "Tyler, I had a daughter once. About your age when she died. She was accused of something she didn't do, and the social pressure destroyed her. She couldn't handle everyone thinking she was a liar." Tyler looked up, and Rebecca could see tears streaming down his face. "The thing is," Daniel continued, "after she died, they found out she was innocent. But it was too late. She never got the chance to see her name cleared, never got justice, and that's haunted me for 20 years. He paused. "You have a chance here that my Hannah never got. A chance to tell the truth before it's too late." "They'll kill me," Tyler said. "My family. They've worked so hard to hide my problems, to protect the family name. If they find out I stole from Grandma, that I blamed some innocent woman, they'll be angry," Rebecca agreed. "But you're their family. They'll find a way through it. But if this comes out without you coming forward first, if they find out you let me suffer for weeks when you could have stopped it, that might be unforgivable." Tyler put his head in his hands. For a long moment, the only sound was the creek rushing below them. "I needed money," he finally said. "I owed people. Bad people. The kind who don't take no for an answer. I saw the necklace in Grandma's purse and I took it. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was desperate and scared and high, probably. And I just grabbed it. And then your grandmother noticed it was missing," Daniel prompted. "Yeah." And she started looking around, asking if anyone had seen anything. And then she saw you, Rebecca, and I let her think it. I didn't say anything to correct her. I let you take the blame because it was easier than admitting what I'd done." "Where's the necklace now?" Rebecca asked. "The pawn shop still has it," Daniel said. "We had someone retrieve it through legal channels. It's with Sheriff Wade now, being held as evidence." Tyler looked up sharply. "So you've already told the sheriff?" "He knows there's evidence," Daniel said. "But he doesn't know the full story. He doesn't know that you're willing to come forward voluntarily. That matters, Tyler, a lot." "I'm in recovery now," Tyler said. 90 days clean. I'm trying so hard to get my life together. This will ruin everything. Not coming forward will ruin more," Rebecca said firmly, "because this secret will eat at you. And more importantly, every day you stay silent is another day my daughter suffers. Can you live with that?" The silence stretched out. Rebecca could see the war happening inside Tyler. The fear of disappointing his family, the shame of admitting what he'd done, fighting against what he knew was right. Finally, he spoke. "The Harvest Festival. You want me to confess there in front of everyone?" We want you to have the chance to tell your truth, Daniel said. Before it gets told for you. The festival is public, there will be witnesses, including the sheriff. Your grandmother can't sweep this under the rug. But if you come forward yourself, show real remorse, take responsibility, that counts for something. I'll lose everything, Tyler whispered. You'll lose the wrong things, Daniel said. The lies, the guilt, the fake respect built on someone else's pain. What you'll keep is your integrity. Your chance to make this right. That's worth something. Tyler looked at Rebecca. I destroyed your life. Yes, she said simply. You did, and I'm angry about that. But I also understand that addiction makes people do things they wouldn't normally do. I understand desperation. What I can't forgive is watching me suffer and doing nothing about it. If I do this, Tyler said slowly. If I confess at the festival, will you? I mean, legally, I won't press charges, Rebecca said. That's not what this is about. I just want my name cleared and my life back, Daniel added. But you'll need to face whatever legal consequences come from the theft itself. And you'll need to make amends. Not just to Rebecca, but to this community. Tyler nodded slowly. He looked sick but also relieved, like a weight was starting to lift. Okay, he said finally. I'll do it. At the festival, I'll tell everyone the truth. They worked out the details. Tyler would speak to Sheriff Wade privately first, the day before the festival. Then at the festival itself, with the sheriff present and the whole town watching, he would make a public confession and return the necklace to his grandmother. As they prepared to leave, Tyler called out to Rebecca. I really am sorry. For what it's worth. Rebecca looked at him for a long moment. Make it worth something. Get better. Stay clean. Use this as a turning point. Driving back down the mountain, Rebecca felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Not quite happiness, but something close to peace. They had a plan. Tyler was going to come forward. Soon everyone would know the truth. Do you think he'll actually do it? Rebecca asked Daniel. What if he gets scared and backs out? He'll do it, Daniel said with certainty. Did you see his face? He's been carrying this guilt for weeks. He wants to confess. He needs to. That night, Lily drew another picture for Daniel. This one showed stick figures on a bridge, and above them, she'd written in her careful 8-year-old handwriting, Sometimes the truth is scary, but it makes you free. Rebecca tucked it into an envelope to give to Daniel the next day. Her daughter was wiser than most adults in this town. Only a few more days until the festival. A few more days until everything changed. The day before the Harvest Festival, Tyler went to see Sheriff Wade. Daniel and Rebecca waited in the parking lot, not quite trusting that Tyler wouldn't lose his nerve at the last minute. But 2 hours later, he emerged looking exhausted but clear-eyed. I told him everything, Tyler said. He's got my statement. He's going to be there tomorrow, ready to make it official once I do the public confession. How do you feel? Rebecca asked. Tyler managed a weak smile. Terrified, but also lighter somehow, like I can breathe for the first time in weeks. That evening, Catherine Whitmore called an emergency family meeting. Word spread through town that something big was happening at the Whitmore estate. People speculated, but nobody knew for sure. Only Tyler, sitting in his grandmother's living room with his parents and siblings, knew what was coming. He didn't tell them yet. That would have been the easy way out, the private way, the way that let the Whitmores control the narrative. No, Tyler had promised to do this publicly, and he was going to keep that promise. The morning of the Harvest Festival dawned clear and beautiful, the kind of fall day that made living in the mountains worth it. With golden light filtering through the trees and a crisp breeze that smelled of wood smoke and pine. Rebecca dressed carefully, putting on her nicest outfit. Lily wore the dress Mrs. Chen had made her, the one with sunflowers on it. They arrived at the festival grounds early before the crowds. Daniel was already there, standing near his truck. He'd trimmed his beard and wore a clean flannel shirt. Rebecca realized this was probably the most effort he'd put into his appearance in years. Ready? He asked. As I'll ever be, Rebecca replied. The festival filled up quickly. It seemed like everyone from Pine Ridge and the surrounding areas had come out. There were craft booths, food stands, a small stage where local musicians would play later, and a main platform where the mayor would give speeches and announcements. Rebecca saw the Whitmore family arrive like royalty. Catherine wore a designer outfit and her signature pearls. She moved through the crowd accepting greetings and compliments, every inch the town matriarch. Tyler walked behind her, pale and quiet. For the first few hours, everything proceeded normally. Rebecca stayed near the edges, trying not to draw attention. A few people gave her dirty looks, but most just avoided eye contact. She saw Lily playing with Nina Whitmore near the craft area, and it made her sad that whatever happened today might end that friendship. At 2 o'clock, the mayor called everyone to the main platform for announcements. This was the moment they'd chosen. Sheriff Wade was standing near the stage, and Daniel had positioned himself where he could see everything. The mayor went through the usual business. Thanks to sponsors, recognition of volunteers, announcement of the raffle winners. Then Catherine Whitmore was invited up to speak about the Community Center Fund, the cause they'd been raising money for. Catherine had just started her speech when Tyler walked up the platform steps. "Grandma," he said, his voice shaking but clear. "I need to interrupt." Catherine turned, surprised. "Tyler, dear, this isn't the time." "Yes, it is." Tyler moved to the microphone. The crowd, sensing drama, went completely silent. Rebecca's heart was pounding. This was it. "My name is Tyler Whitmore," he began, though everyone knew who he was. "And I have something I need to say. 6 weeks ago at the Community Center fundraiser, my grandmother's diamond necklace was stolen." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Catherine's face had gone pale. "An innocent woman was accused of that theft," Tyler continued. "Rebecca Torres was blamed, and I stayed silent. I let her reputation be destroyed. I let her business suffer. I let her daughter be bullied." His voice cracked. "And I did all that because I was the one who stole the necklace." The silence was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop in that crowd of 300 people. "I took it because I owed money to some dangerous people. I was using drugs, making terrible decisions, and I was desperate. I saw the necklace and I took it. I pawned it for $12,000. Tyler pulled out a piece of paper. "This is my confession. Everything I just said I've already told Sheriff Wade. The pawn shop has security footage. The evidence is clear." Catherine tried to speak, but no words came out. The crowd was staring, some with their mouths literally open. "Rebecca Torres is innocent," Tyler said, his voice growing stronger. "She never did anything wrong. And I let this community destroy her because I was too much of a coward to admit what I'd done. I'm sorry to everyone, but especially to Rebecca and her daughter Lily. What I did was unforgivable." He turned and walked down the platform steps, straight to where Sheriff Wade was waiting. Wade had his handcuffs ready, though Rebecca had a feeling he wouldn't use them in front of this crowd. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Daniel stepped forward. He walked to the platform and stood at the microphone that Tyler had left. Rebecca's breath caught. Was he really going to speak? In front of everyone? "My name is Daniel Mercer," he said, and his voice carried across the crowd. "Most of you know me as the man who lives on the mountain, the one who doesn't talk. Well, today I'm talking." Catherine had sunk into a chair on the platform, looking like she might faint. 20 years ago, Daniel continued, I had a daughter named Hannah. She was 16 years old, smart, kind, full of life. Someone at her school accused her of stealing. She was innocent, but it didn't matter. The rumors destroyed her. The other kids were cruel. The parents demanded justice. And my daughter, my beautiful Hannah, couldn't take it anymore. She took her own life. Rebecca saw tears on people's faces in the crowd. Even those who'd never shown her kindness looked affected. 2 months after she died, they found the real thief. Someone had framed Hannah, and we never knew until it was too late. I've spent 20 years living with that pain. 20 years wishing I could have done more, said more, fought harder. Daniel's voice was steady but filled with emotion. When I saw this community do the same thing to Rebecca Torres, when I saw you turn on her without evidence, without trial, just based on suspicion and gossip, I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. He looked directly at the crowd. How many of you threw stones that night at the town meeting? How many of you spread rumors? How many of you stopped shopping at her bakery, let your kids bully her daughter, cross the street to avoid her? He paused. You almost did to Rebecca what my community did to Hannah. You almost destroyed an innocent woman. The shame on people's faces was visible. Rebecca saw several people crying. Tyler Whitmore made a terrible mistake, Daniel said. But he's young, he's sick, he's struggling. And today, he did something incredibly brave. He told the truth even though it cost him everything. That takes courage. Daniel's gaze swept the crowd. But what about the rest of you? What's your excuse? He stepped back from the microphone and walked to where Rebecca stood. The crowd parted for him like water. Catherine Whitmore finally found her voice. She stood on the platform, shaking. Rebecca, I don't know what to say. Rebecca walked forward, Lily holding her hand. She climbed the platform steps and stood facing the woman who had destroyed her life. You could start with, I'm sorry, Rebecca said quietly. I'm sorry, Catherine said immediately. I was wrong. I accused you without evidence, and I let my pain and anger over the necklace cloud my judgment. I should have been more careful. I should have considered that you might be innocent. You should have, Rebecca agreed. But it wasn't just you. It was everyone. She turned to face the crowd. You all decided I was guilty because I was convenient. Because I was new here. Because I didn't have family history in Pine Ridge, because it was easier to blame the outsider than to question one of your own. Her voice got stronger. I came to this town looking for a fresh start. A place where my daughter could grow up safe and happy. And you tried to take that away from me based on nothing but suspicion. She saw people looking down, shifting uncomfortably. But here's what I learned, Rebecca continued. Even in the darkest times, there are good people. Mrs. Chen, who never stopped being kind. Sheriff Wade, who at least tried to be fair. Daniel Mercer, who stepped in when no one else would. And yes, even Tyler Whitmore, who found the courage to admit the truth. She looked at Tyler, who was standing with the sheriff, tears streaming down his face. I forgive you, she said. I'm still angry and I'm still hurt, but I forgive you. I hope you get better. I hope you stay clean. I hope you use this as a turning point. Then she turned back to the crowd. As for the rest of you, I hope you learned something. I hope the next time someone new comes to town, you give them a chance. I hope the next time accusations fly, you ask for evidence. I hope you remember this day and how close you came to destroying an innocent person. The mayor stepped forward, clearly unsure what to do. Rebecca, on behalf of Pine Ridge, I want to formally apologize. We failed you. We'll do better. Over the next hour, people lined up to apologize to Rebecca individually. Some were genuine. Others were clearly just trying to save face, but Rebecca accepted them all with grace. Several business owners pledged to support her bakery. The local paper wanted to do a story clearing her name officially. Catherine Whitmore pulled Rebecca aside privately. I know my apology isn't enough, but I want to make this right. The necklace, once it's returned from evidence, I want you to have it. I don't want your necklace, Rebecca said firmly. Then let me establish a trust fund for Lily's education. Let me do something to make amends. Rebecca thought about it. Donate to the community center in my name. Help families struggling with addiction. Fund programs that teach people about the danger of false accusations. That would mean something. Catherine nodded, tears in her eyes. I'll do all of that. I promise. As the sun set on the Harvest Festival, Rebecca found Daniel sitting on a bench watching the crowd. She sat down next to him. You spoke, she said. After 20 years of silence, you spoke. And you told them about Hannah. It was time, Daniel said simply. Maybe helping you is how I finally learned to help her. Too late for Hannah, but not too late for you. What will you do now? Rebecca asked. Go back to your mountain? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Maybe not entirely. Lily asked me to teach her wood carving. And someone needs to make sure this town doesn't fall back into old habits. Rebecca smiled. We could start a support group. People who've been falsely accused. People dealing with the aftermath of mob mentality. That's not a bad idea, Daniel said. Lily ran up then, breathless and excited. Mom! Nina's mom said we can have a sleepover. Can I, please? Rebecca looked at the girl who'd been bullied and ostracized just yesterday, now being welcomed back like nothing had happened. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Yes, she said. You can. 3 months later, Rebecca's bakery was thriving. Daniel had come down from the mountain more or less permanently, renting a small place in town and teaching woodworking classes at the community center. Tyler had completed a treatment program, and